Greetings, unsettled souls, and welcome to The Correct Views. Sam I.B. DeGangi reporting for The Media Speaks. Guys, it's time. It's time again for the massive Fukushima update. I do want to say, as I wear my Fukushima shirt, yes, I think it's that bad. A lot of people have asked me, I'm going to address it real quick, who are you to be giving us this information? I am somebody who found an interest in all things nuclear right around the time that the movie Silkwood came out. I was also infatuated with heavy metal, and oddly enough, I ended up finding The Ultimate Sin by Ozzy at a very young age. And I have studied all things nuclear just as an interest forever. You got to remember that The Ultimate Sin came out real close to the time that Chernobyl happened. When I went to school, you had to report on things like that when they happened. So nuclear was part of a big deal. I grew up during the end of the Cold War. So you have to remember, I've been studying this my whole life. When I bring you something, I'm not out here to lie. Why would I buy a camera to come out here and lie to you? This is The Correct Views. What that means is I do a lot of work to do my damnedest to bring you the absolute most correct viewpoints of the news happening today. That's why we do Fukushima every month. So again, if you're Chris Busby, Helen Collicott, Lauren Murray, Kevin Blanche, go ahead and question what I say because you know more than me. If you're a physicist, by all means. But please don't think that I'm out here making this up. It's ridiculous. To my new viewers, thank you for tuning in. I will now spend the next half hour or so doing my very best to bring you the correct views. Friends, dailycaller.com. I want to go ahead and address how a lot of the Fukushima stuff affects us here in the United States and outside of Japan. Why? Because there tends to be a lot of people that, why should I tune in? Well, why right now? Why should you be watching this guy blather into the microphone here? Why? Because it affects more than Japan. And I'm going to try to bring that to you in this episode here. Lax security at nuclear power plant outside Washington. Now, for those of you Chris Brown fans, Washington is in fact in the USA. About 50 miles outside Washington, D.C. is a nuclear power plant that sits on the western shore of the Chesapeake Bay. It's the sort of place that the government has warned is vulnerable to terrorist attack. But an investigation conducted by the Daily Caller found that anybody can enter the property of the Culvert Cliffs nuclear power plant, drive through the front gates, park not far from a nuclear reactor, and have no contact of any kind with security. Now let's pause there for a minute, shall we? If you believe the government, the Oklahoma City bombing was brought on to us by fertilizer bombs in a truck. If you don't believe the government, it stands to reason that a fertilizer bomb truck van thingy, just the same, parked in front of a nuclear reactor or perhaps in front of the spent fuel pool, could create quite a problem. What kind of problem? Well, we're talking meltdowns here. For those of you new to the massive Fukushima update, welcome aboard. This is a big deal. People you know and love will have cancers and heart diseases and all kinds of awful things throughout the entire course of their life. No, it's not just going to kill them. You, us. It makes you sick. It does lots of really damaging things. Now, if we were to have this problem as we are in the west coast of the U.S., Florida, look it up. It just got juiced from the jet stream, the way the jet stream moves through the country. They just got juiced from Fukushima steam and whatnot. It stays in the air and travels the whole globe, people. What if we were to have our very own Fukushima here that would not just poison the west coast and Hawaii, where I say you should not live, but what if it was to poison most of the U.S. that way? Well, listen to this. The D.C. was able to proceed through an unmanned security checkpoint. The guard booth was empty and padlocked, and minutes later enter a parking lot about 550 feet away from one of the plant's 2 nuclear reactors. On one visit, reporters did not see a single security guard anywhere. Feeling safe yet, viewers? On a subsequent visit, a lone marked security car passed by without slowing down or asking any questions. At one point, a large civilian truck, roughly the size of the trucks used in terror bombings around the world, including the Oklahoma City Federal Building in '95, rolled through the front gates and approached the reactors without being stopped. The DC visited Culvert Cliffs after being alerted by someone who recently visited the nuclear facility last month and became concerned about the apparent lack of security. The facility is the softest target I've ever seen in my whole life, the visitor recalled. Again, we know, look at my last video, we know we have idiots in Oklahoma trying to be Islamo jihadis, yo, beheading people. Why not give them the softest target in the world for some of the most dangerous elements known to man? People, once these get in the air, they cannot be gotten out of the air. The gene pool is forever altered already, and it can only get worse. The Obama administration has oversight on the physical protection of nuclear plants. Oh, wonderful. Through the Nuclear Regulatory Commission, whose commissioners are appointed by the president. Well, let's remember that he's already admitted to not listening to his own staff on how bad ISIS was getting. What else has he missed? Well, how about the importance of what I'm reporting here? A spokesman for the commission on Monday defended the state of security at Culvert Cliffs. Of course, today of the total of the padlocked guardhouse, and lack of visitable security systems, spokeswoman Diane Scrincy responded this way: based on the security inspections we've conducted on an ongoing basis, security at Culvert Cliffs is appropriate to protect public health and safety. Good. I think members of her family should have to live there. And I bet you that you'd find security was ratcheted up. I bet you that you'd find it was a whole lot safer, wouldn't you? Corey Rafferty, a spokesman for the plant's owner, Exelon Corporation, told the DC that manned checkpoints are not required at all nuclear power plants. Well, good. Just because they said that they were not required, well, hellfire, that must mean that they're not needed at all, because you can always trust the government, even though the government isn't testing any of the food brought to you from Japan where the meltdown is happening. And that, my friends, is fact. Look it up. The fences and checkpoints you see at Culvert Cliffs are only a small part of our defense security strategy, he said. In fact, much of our defense lies in the things you can't see. Well, why is it then that they didn't see the truck that could have been loaded with bombs pulling up to the reactor? Whatever other steps you have, you're dwelling on the guard, but you are deliberately doing that because you don't want to address the fact that the entire fail-safe system failed. Asked why the plant maintains a checkpoint if no officers are in it, Rafferty replied, nuclear security is always evolving. Oh, so it's evolved into a point where we don't need a security guard. I can't get into too many details, but redeployment enhanced overall site security, increased safety of our officers, and provided more effective use of resources. What effective use of resources? They practically planted a bomb at the foot of a reactor. Absolute mind rot, man. You would have to have the brain of a mushroom to believe any of this. I'm dead serious. I hate to say that there's even more. If they can do this now with reactors there, how many other plants are in the same disarray? I'm fine. Maybe you don't live in America. You're about to tune out. Sam, you're the worst host ever. Maybe if you hate my videos, go make a better one. You probably can. Reuters.com exclusive: Iran, not America, seeks to give and take on Islamic militants' nuclear program. Let me be very clear here. If your neighbor opens up a meth lab, should your other neighbor beside you also open up a meth lab? Is that a good idea? Would you like to have two meth labs beside you just because one neighbor made a stupid idea so that, you know, when it blows up, your house goes down? Probably not. Well, Iran is wanting to build a nuclear reactor in an earthquake zone. And I know what you're going to say. America does it. Israel does it. Okay, great. That's the meth lab in the neighborhood. I don't think America or Israel should do it either. So because Israel and America have done something stupid, that means that Iran should also do something stupid to add another nuke plant in another earthquake zone. Don't forget that it is the earthquake, not the tsunami, that has been proven to have taken out the reactors in Japan. The reason that matters is because if the tsunami didn't do it, then this argument that nuke plants that are placed in the United States in earthquake zones are safe is a lie. And we know that not all of them, but a couple of them began melting down prior to the tidal wave hitting. That is absolute fact. Second of all, what about nuke power plants that are in the stream of earthquakes that destroy dams? In America, there are nuclear power plants that have proven that if the dam fails, it will be 100% certain that that plant will melt down. It says Iran is ready to work with the United States and its allies to stop ISIS, but would like more flexibility on Iran's uranium enrichment program in exchange. In other words, if America and the UN allows them to build a nuclear power plant in an earthquake zone and allows them the permission to melt it down and effectively poison people way outside of Iran's borders, that it should be okay. Let's not forget also, we have Islamists fighting Islamists. You don't have Jews blowing up other Jews, but you have Islamists blowing up other Islamists. So maybe the other side of the religion of peace, Islam, will decide to give a peaceful bomb to the side that has the nuclear power plant, and now you have a civil war that affects the entire northern hemisphere. Thank you, Iran. It says the comments from the officials who asked not to be named, I wonder why, highlight how difficult it may be for the Western powers to keep the nuclear negotiations separate from other regional conflicts. Iran wields influence in the Syrian civil war and on the Iraqi government, which is fighting the advance of Islamic State. Iran has sent mixed signals about its willingness to cooperate on defeating Islamic State, the hardline Sunni Islamist group. So, you know, the Sunnis and the Shiites can't get along, but none of them would ever want to bomb the nuclear power plant. And Allah must have promised them that if they wear the turbans really tight on their head, that he won't give them an earthquake that would melt their plant down. This is a terrible idea. All right, guys, I'm going to move on. Japantimes.co.jp to bring us back to Fukushima, of course, where all of this is happening. Awful. Here we go. I'm scrolling down. Fukushima cleanup going painfully slow. Remember, it started out at 30 years. It was going to take 30 years to clean this up. Now we're looking at 40 years, and they're adding to that as well, depending on these situations, of course. This is by Mizuho Aoki, 3.5 years after Tokyo Electric Power Companies, that is GE, that is TEPCO, take your money out of stock that's in GE, that's how you fight back. Crippled Fukushima #1 power station spewed massive amounts of radioactive materials into the air and water. Decontamination, easy for me to say, work in Fukushima Prefecture has yet to draw to an end. No shiznit. The government initially hoped to complete the decontamination by the end of last month, but the process continues to lag far behind, prompting the government to push back the goal by 3 years to 2017. They promised us we were in cold shutdown, remember, a couple of years ago, I think now? And we've been spewing up ever since over there. So the cold shutdown was a lie. There's no reason to think that the decontamination will not also be. Due to the slow progress, huge bags filled with contaminated soil can still be seen piled up hundreds of temporary storage sites across the prefecture. And many residents are in limbo, unable to make up their minds about whether to return home in the near future or relocate for good. Let me make it easy for you. If you relocate, you are an idiot. Why? Because the half-life of uranium and plutonium goes into the millions of years. That means that it will be safe for you to return to in several million years. Anybody that would go back, you might as well put your head in the bear trap. Can I be more clear? Play Russian roulette with a full gun. How are toxic houses and land decontaminated? The work mainly consists of scraping off the top layer of soil, removing grass and fallen leaves, and washing roofs and walls with water or piping with a cloth. Of course, yeah, you can wash the radiation away. The radiation's just going to die when it hits the soap and water, because we all know that water kills soap. Soap and water kills radiation, right? If you're an idiot. So this washes down into their lawn. So now they've washed the nuclear waste off of their house and onto the lawn. So they scrape off the now concentrated nuclear radiation that was already on the lawn with the water and soap that came onto the lawn. Scrape it off and store it in the city. Maybe we should move back to that city. As of March, the removed soil and grass was being stored at more than 660 temporary storage sites set up by municipal governments in Fukushima, and at 53,000 decontaminated spots such as school grounds and people's front work yards. So that means the places that I've just told you about are now double contaminated. Also, remember what Chris Busby has taught us, that they are moving the radiation also all over the country, so that when health and cancer rates go insane, they can say, well, you're nowhere near Fukushima, so it couldn't have been Fukushima that caused it. GE and TEPCO are innocent. Well, yeah, except for the fact that you moved the Fukushima ground all over Japan in order to prevent the lawsuits. Aren't these wonderful people, GE? They bring such good things to life. Through the decontamination work, officials aim to reduce areas where the annual radiation exposure exceeds 20 millisieverts. We also know that there is no safe dosage of radiation, and even 1 millisievert is terrible, which is their long-term goal. Yeah, a long-term goal is still utterly poisonous. It mentions that the central government claims to be in charge of this in tandem with Fukushima, the whole cleanup. There is no cleanup. You cannot clean this up. If you move back there, you can die. It's costing 66 billion yen to clean up. The Environment Ministry has said, of course, this is going to end up back on the taxpayers. It said the government decided last December to finance the cost of the decontamination. Of course, that means taxpayers paying for their own poisoning. Friends, you're listening to The Correct Views. I've got 3 more stories to get to, so don't leave. I just real quick want to tell you that if you're looking for fun, if you're looking for something that doesn't involve thinking about radioactive death that GE and TEPCO have brought us, you're probably going to head to Cedar Point. I always do. I get season passes, as does our behind-the-scenes Queen Christelle. And when we go there, we like to go and see the haunted houses, and we like to stay 2 days. The trouble is that all the hotels up there that are advertised through Cedar Point are expensive, very expensive, starting at like $150 kind of expensive, going upwards to $600. Well, you can stay at the Seacrest Motel at a fraction of that. You're going to save so much money on your hotel room that you'll be able to pay for your second day and most of your food. How? By going to the Seacrest Motel, which is like 2 miles from the entrance of the park. Tell Vicky, who's going to give you your room, that you heard about it from TCV. When you do, enjoy your comfortable bed, enjoy your wonderful bathtub, and remember that you saved a fortune. Friends, a couple more I want to get to here. America, Al Jazeera, Fukushima, 41 months on. So where are we 41 months into this? That is the great question here. On the stream, Japan's Fukushima disaster is out of the headlines, unfortunately. But the devastation continues. You mean everything's not okay? Emerging information suggests that the Japanese government and TEPCO may not have been forthright with critical information. Rice paddies, it says, far outside the exclusion zone are contaminated. How much Japanese rice have you eaten? Children have alarming rates of thyroid cancer, and more than 200 U.S. sailors filed a $1 billion lawsuit against TEPCO, charging the company knew that the sailors were being exposed to high levels of radiation that were disclosed. Every day, 80,000 gallons of contaminated waste flows from the destroyed reactor into the Pacific Ocean. It was 300 gallons, leaving the world to contend with the impact. And we're seeing the impact. You can't eat tuna. Look at the radiation levels on them. You eat tuna, you're ending your life. My dear Aunt Georgine was eating spinach salad, and I'm like, with seaweed. Where did this come from? Did the seaweed and spinach come from the West Coast? Because it's more harm than good. What do? You take selenium, which I do every day. That way I don't have to eat it without knowing which ocean it's come from. Nearly 3.5 years after the nuclear meltdown in Fuku, the stream asks, why do questions about its devastating environmental and health consequences remain unanswered? Nobel Peace Prize nominee Dr. Helen Caldicott, one of the foremost experts on radiation exposure, debates a scientist who says the impacts are exaggerated. I love what she says here. And again, she's a crazy green weenie. The Green Party couldn't be more wrong. But she brings up a really good point in this, that the only people that come out in favor of the nuclear industry are those that are somehow invested in it. Every other study miraculously finds it to be utterly toxic. Guys, two more to get to. South Africa, Russia agreed to $50 billion nuclear deal. Russia, who not only caused the meltdown at Chernobyl, but also hid Mavic. If you don't know what Mavic is, it's where they melted down a weapons factory of nuclear elements, and the people had the skin sloughing from their bodies, falling off like zombies, and not knowing what was causing it. And of course, Russia didn't tell them. These wonderful nuke safety people. South Africa has agreed to a strategic partnership with Russia worth $50 billion to significantly increase its nuclear power generation capacity. It's by AFP. The trouble with this boneheaded idea is that Russia is in such a rush to shed all things Western that they're passing out hand grenades to infants here. This isn't as bad of an idea as building one in the active earthquake zone there in Iraq. However, this is also a people that are less prepared to deal with some kind of a meltdown or a mess than anyone else. Look at how wonderful they're handling Ebola. Well, a meltdown is worse, friends, much, much worse. Russia's Rosatom State Atomic Energy Corporation, might I add, hell-bent on killing the world, said on Monday that it will provide up to 8 nuclear reactors to southern Africa by 2023. That would be 8 nuclear explosions just waiting to happen, in a $50 billion strategic partnership between the two countries. The delivery of the reactors will enable the foundation of the first nuclear power plant based on Russian technology on the African continent. Why don't you just feel ever safe? Rosatom Director General Sergei Kuryenko estimated the value of the deal around $50 billion, given that one reactor cost $5 billion. So it's all about the money. Who cares if they die of radiation? Just kill the black man over there. Who cares? It doesn't matter as long as we get the ruble up and we can keep denying the West and drinking vodka. Rosatom director, I read that the Intel governmental agreement signed in Vienna on the margins of the International Atomic Energy Agency conference calls for Russia to help build infrastructure in South Africa to train African specialists at Russian universities. So you've got the blind leading the blind here. Look, friends, when you build nuclear reactors, you are building death into your country. Even the routine releases that they give you are deadly. Like Helen Caldicott says. Great, someday you'll just get a routine cancer. Guys, last thing I want to get to, the Dumdy of the day from BBC. Yes, the Fukushima update has a Dumdy. World wildlife populations halved in 40 years. I love how they don't mention that the Chernobyl accident, 3 Mile Island, Mavic, and of course, Fukushima. They don't ever once mention in this that nuclear messes could do anything. It's hunters and global warming, even though we know global warming isn't happening. That's what's causing all this. The reports suggests populations of animals have been halved in 40 years as new methodology gives more alarming results than in the report 2 years ago. Let's not mention that Fukushima is destroying the insect wildlife there, and that not only have they been halved, most of them are mutated. The report says populations of mammals, birds, reptiles, amphibians, and fish have declined by an average of 52%. Nothing at all to do with the nuclear waste in the ocean. As we just reported, it's still 80,000 gallons a day. Populations of freshwater species have suffered an even worse fall of 76%. That may be non-Fukushima related, but again, it falls everywhere. It says there is a severe impact. I bet there is. There is always a severe impact when you build nuclear reactors in places where you shouldn't apply them. Am I saying that all of it is a fault of that? No, but I'm saying that it's not even mentioned in here, as if none of it ever happened. It said in West Africa, forest felling was restricted forest elephants to 6 to 7% of their historic range. That is true, okay? You can run animals out of their area by overlogging. But to have a huge, go look at this at bbc.com, to have a huge article like this, never once mention a peep about radiation in Fukushima, in Chernobyl, in Mavic, in 3 Mile Island, and the disaster in the UK, is ridiculous, friends. And that is the correct views. This is Sam I.B. DeGangi signing off, asking you to go check out themediaspeaks.com, where Kyle Court, D-Lake, and myself are always posting, asking you to go to the Arcadia Grill and get some of the best food you've ever eaten if you're anywhere at all near Canton, Ohio. And last but not least, donate to the show if you can, because every penny you give to me goes towards a better show. Thank you, friends. You can do so at thecorrectviews@hotmail.com. Good night. God bless. And to my live listening friends, please make sure you hit share. Thank you.